This is Nagorno-Karabakh's deadly new war, filmed by news site Hedka.am on the Armenian front lines. You can hear the sound of a drone. Soldiers desperately try to shoot it down. Armenian forces have dug in, but Azerbaijan says this war will end only with the return of the disputed territory. The cost of that war so far, the numbers of Azeri dead and wounded, is a secret known only to the Azeri leadership.
We have only one condition. Armenia must leave our lands. If the Armenian government complies with this agreement, the fighting will stop.
The women of this village have turned to each other for comfort during a difficult time. They're mourning the death of a daughter and a sister. The 19-year-old was tortured and gang-raped in India's Uttar Pradesh state. Her body was discovered by family members before she died of her injuries on Tuesday. After that, they say the police made their suffering worse, cremating her body in the middle of the night against their wishes. These pictures of her funeral pyre have further angered the local community in a case that shocked the nation. Local police say they had the family's approval. They've deployed officers around the area to maintain calm, but the community is demanding justice. The victims' families say they want those responsible to face the death penalty.
It is common knowledge that Pakistan pushes drugs across the Indian border, but the full extent of this illegal trade remained unknown until now. More than 80% of illegal drugs entering India come from Pakistan. The figure is based on a survey conducted by a European agency called EU Reporter. It reveals how Pakistan has an absolute monopoly in the subcontinent's narcotics trade. The second biggest supplier, Nepal, is at a distant 5%. While the figure is indeed startling, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Pakistan has long used narcotics trade to fund its terror operations. Authorities turn a blind eye to the illegal drug trade. If weapons and ammunition are also part of the consignment, Pakistan's deep state is an active proponent of this trade.
We've been here since 12 o'clock midnight, and as soon as the border was reopened, we could see a lot of people who had been waiting for hours to cross over to Zimbabwe and beyond. And as soon as they presented their COVID-19 certificates, they were allowed to go through the South African side of the border so that they can cross over to the neighboring countries. You could see that they were eagerly waiting because they'd been holed up in South Africa for months since the introduction of the national lockdown. But then there was a nasty turn to the event that we heard that on the other side of the border, that the Zimbabwean border, Zimbabwean officials were not allowing them to pass through as they are still on alert level 4, unlike in South Africa where we are now at alert level 1.
Rescue crews outnumber tourists at the Mermaid's Pool at Tamor. Spectacular scenery once again, the scene of so much sadness. Police, paramedics and fire rescue teams called in to find a swimmer who jumped off the rocks into water at the popular gorge southwest of Sydney, but didn't resurface. The 17-year-old's friends watched on as rescue crews were forced to scale a steep ravine past signs warning of the dangers below. It's a sight all too familiar to authorities. In 2014, 38-year-old Megan Moody fell to her death while camping at the spot with her fiancé. In 2016, a 27-year-old Pakistani student drowned after hitting his head.
The arrival of police divers tragically signifies this operation is moving from rescue to recovery. It's believed the 17-year-old dove into the water from atop that cliff over there and tragically never emerged.
Let's now shift our focus to Turkey, which has now entered a new era of tight social media restrictions today. President Erdogan's draconian law is going to censor free speech online in Turkey. The newly enforced law threatens to crack down on platforms like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube if contentious posts are not taken down. The legislation was rammed through the parliament by Erdogan's ruling AKP party. Under the new rule, platforms with more than 1 million daily users must open offices in Turkey that can deal with local court decisions to remove offensive content within 48 hours. And if not, they will then face advertising bans and fines of up to $5.1 million and bandwidth restrictions of up to 90%, making these platforms effectively unusable in Turkey.
Are looking at the scene of an emergency landing. The CHP says the C-130 either clipped or made some sort of contact with a fighter jet over thermal. The C-130 had 8 passengers eject and land safely with parachutes. The pilot and co-pilot managed to land the aircraft in a field uninjured near Polk Street and 59th Avenue. Now, the fighter jet went down near Borrego Salton Seaway and Holly Road in Imperial County. At this time, the injuries to people on that plane are not clear.
New developments in the Breonna Taylor case. A judge ordering the grand jury documents and recordings to be released, and that new body cam video from right after the fatal shooting in her home, raising new questions about police conduct.
Walk back to my voice! Overnight, a county judge ordering the release of recordings and documents from the grand jury that indicted just one of the officers involved in the shooting death of Breonna Taylor. Those records set to be filed in court, possibly making them available to the public. State Attorney General Daniel Cameron saying his office would comply with the judge's ruling. This comes as police body cam videos from the night Breonna Taylor was killed, obtained by Vice News, are raising serious questions about how Louisville police conducted their investigation of the botched raid.
A Japanese serial killer dubbed the Twitter Killer has confessed to murdering 9 people. 29-year-old Takahiro Shiraishi would lure people with suicidal thoughts on social media and tell them that he can assist them in dying and maybe even die alongside them. His lawyers have argued that the charges against him should be leaner, as all his victims had allegedly given their consent to be killed. However, Shiraishi is also accused of dismembering his victims, even rape, and he himself reportedly disagrees with his lawyers. Shiraishi's victims would be aged between 15 and 26, and they were found with bruises on the backs of their heads, which indicates they resisted. In an interview with a Japanese daily, he reportedly admitted he killed without consent.
This draft bill is, by its very nature, a breach of the obligation of good faith laid down in the withdrawal agreement. Moreover, if adopted as is, it will be in full contradiction to the Protocol of Ireland, Northern Ireland. The deadline lapsed yesterday. The problematic provisions have not been removed. Therefore, this morning, the Commission has decided to send a letter of formal notice to the UK government. This is the first step in an infringement procedure. The letter invites the UK government to send its observations within a month.
A ministerial order has just been issued, an official state bulletin, and that says that essentially all the regions that are affected by a COVID rate of over 500 per 100,000 cases, and also have more than 35% of their intensive care beds subject to COVID-19 patients, and has more than 10% of tests, they will have to introduce a series of restrictions restrictions on movement. Essentially, that means that the whole of Madrid and a number of the surrounding towns and cities must stop their residents from travelling outside those districts. They must also not get together with more than 6 people unless their family is larger than 6. It looks from this ministerial order that people will be able to go to shops and bars, but they will have limitations on the numbers. They will also be closing earlier.